Hello and welcome to my EDAD 701 Week 5 discussion video. A couple of things I just wanted to note quickly before we get started here is this week's content will be probably a little bit shorter than normal, which I apologize for. I had a sudden situation pop up at my school where my director of special education has suddenly announced her resignation. That's going to be effective in a couple weeks here. So I am in the running to take over that position contingent on passing a couple state barriers. I work in the state of Illinois. So in order for me to work as a director in the state of Illinois, there are a couple tests and exams I have to take and pass. So I've been preoccupied with that. But we will still cover our material to the extent that we can. As always, we're not going to get to every single detail within our discussion. There's a lot of content to cover, but we will try to go through the material in a way where we still cover them comprehensively and get an understanding of some of the things that we're looking for in our discussion here this week. So we'll go ahead and start right off with our first section here, building on our background knowledge. And question one is, what are the viewpoints you are privy to in your current district regarding professional development? Professional development is a topic that comes up with teachers, administrators very frequently, and a lot of people have very different views on professional development and what it means, the importance of it, how it's implemented, and its effect on teachers and students in a school or a program. With professional development, this last year, I was a little more hands-on involved with the professional development in my therapeutic day program as I was going through my practicum for director of special education. And the professional development for Chance Light in our school focuses, on, since we are just special education students, that kind of makes professional development not necessarily easier, but it does limit or give us a finer scope of things to focus on because we don't have to worry about having our students work into the general education settings or environments. Everyone's contained in special education classrooms. So from that perspective, we look at things like how are we using our online resources to enhance the learning environment and meet the accommodations and needs and modifications in a student's IEP. How are we addressing all the goals in a student's IEP as far as, again, modifications, accommodations, or other related services? And what are some of the instructional practices that we're using in our classrooms to continue to make sure that students are meeting those state benchmarks and continuing to make academic, social, emotional progress in their academic and life careers as well. So as far as how staff view it, a lot of staff, I shouldn't say a lot of staff, but there is, I think, a divide within the staff, at my particular location as to how they view professional development. I think the teachers and the paraprofessionals and the social workers view the professional development in a different light than some of the other roles in my environment. For example, we have BSS workers in our program. They're behavioral support specialists, and they kind of go from classroom to classroom and assist with student behavioral issues. I think since they're not quite as involved with the academic or the social work progress of students, the professional development is not always as relevant for them as it is for the teachers. So I think they view it a little bit differently than, again, how a teacher or a paraprofessional does. I think it's our job as the educational administrators to make sure we are creating professional developments that do benefit all members of our educational program and making sure that we're creating professional development that is going to not only be relevant to everyone in our program, but also enhance their own professional learning and also reach their professional goals as well. What about toward new initiatives? Uh, kind of touched on that at the end there, but any new initiatives that we take with our professional development, we just want to make sure that those new initiatives, again, are pushing our teachers to reach their own professional and academic professional goals and growth and their development and their sustained success as well, in the classroom and with their students now and with their students in the future. Because when we start these professional developments, ideally that does have a trickle down effect to where it is benefiting the administrators in the building, which benefits the teachers, which then benefits all the students in the building as well. Professional development, if implemented correctly, should benefit all members of our educational environment, and it should be something that does have an impact and a positive impact on our students and teaching staff. As the one who will guide and lead both professional development and new initiatives, how will you leverage that information? Again, kind of what we talked about in the beginning, but making sure that staff understand and see the importance and relevance of the professional development that is taking place in front of them. Staff need to see that what they are doing with this professional development time is relevant and is going to attribute to their success as well as student success in the classroom as well. The reality with professional development is that when we do have these professional development times, whether they're workshops or small group work or collaboration between administrators and teachers or teachers and teachers, it does take away from some of that free time or work time that the teacher would have otherwise. Time they could be grading, time they could be putting grades in the grade book, times they could be working on their own professional developmental goals as well. So we're taking time away from them to work on some other agenda. So we have to make sure that whatever we're asking them to do, whether we're working with them or whether the teachers are working with teachers or their peers and social workers, excuse me, anything they are working on is relevant to their success and they see how that is going to help them be successful and ultimately help the students in their classroom be successful as well. So that kind of wraps up our background content there. We'll head on to section 2, the essential area of responsibility and roles of the director of instruction. I have a few prompts here, again, relating to professional development. Who in your district develops and facilitates district in-service and other professional development days? Share how these processes work. So at my therapeutic day program, as I mentioned a couple times now, we are a small program, only 3 classrooms, 3 teachers, 3 paraprofessionals, 2 social workers, and the director of special education as well. So the professional development is designed and implemented primarily by the director of special education, but she also works with our regional director of SPED as well. So right above the Chance Light Education Center director of special education, we have a woman named Stephanie, who is the regional director, and she goes from program to program. There are multiple therapeutic day programs in our company that she works with, and she works on making sure that the implementation of these professional developments, are carried out and done thoroughly and properly. So the professional developments are going to be, again, developments that relate to a teacher's own developmental and professional goals, as well as the legal developments that we must have as well. we have to make sure that we also cover the mandatory state guidelines as far as reported mandated training. But bloodborne pathogens is also another one that we have to cover as well. So making sure that we cover not only the legal um, professional developments, but also the ones that might relate more so towards teacher and student growth in the classroom. So um, last year, one of the things that we did with our professional development days that was designed by my director of special education, excuse me, um, was focusing on social emotional learning. Social emotional learning goals and social emotional learning was contributing to student success in the classroom and making sure that students are aware of social emotional learning, as well as the instructors themselves. Who in your district leads the new teacher induction program? Share with me how this process works. So with the teacher induction program, again, that is carried out by the Director of Special Education at Chancelite. And that process I was part of last year as well. And what we did last year was the Director of Special Education actually had myself work with one of our new instructors. So I teach high school and secondary school in our program, grades 9 through 12. And we also hired an additional secondary high school teacher last year, and she was completely new to Chance Light. She had never worked in a therapeutic day program before, so the setting of the environment was something that was new to her. The materials and our curriculum was also new to her, and just the environment of our school, being a small structured school, uh, only 10 students in a classroom, but really needing intensive and a lot of support for the students were things that were completely new to her that she was not really familiar with. So my job as to induct a new teacher into our program was to um, kind of be like that. I don't want to say supervisory role, but to be that mentor to that instructor, to check in with her, make sure she was getting the supports that she needed, making sure that she understood the curriculum, making sure that she understood how to modify and adapt the curriculum to meet the the goals and the needs found in the student's IEPs. Making sure that she understood what she was looking at when she read the IEPs and how to apply those accommodations and modifications in a student's IEP to the classroom and to the individual student as well. So I served in a mentor role for her. Um, a similar process is something I think that I would use as well if I were to become the director of special education in our program. However, I think that if I were the director, I would also still be um, a mentor myself to a new teacher as well as getting the support of the other teachers in the program. I think it's important for new teachers to feel supported and welcome, and to know that any questions, any problems that arise on their end, uh, they have the support and the openness of not only a mentor teacher, but also the director of the program as well. Um, Becoming the director of the program doesn't mean that my responsibilities or my jobs in the classroom are just non-existent anymore. It is still part of my responsibility to be involved in the classroom processes and to be providing supports to the teachers and students in those rooms as well. So, um, I would um, help new teachers in our program as well as have our other teachers and social workers provide supports to them as well. Who in your district collaborates with leadership and staff to analyze data, identify gaps, and develop goals and action steps for school improvement? Again, the collaboration of leadership to analyze the data, identify gaps and develop goals. I feel like I'm just putting myself on repeat here, but that does again come from the director of special education in my program. And director of special education again works with that regional administrator and then the other members of the administrative team in the company to ensure that not student, but teacher and student goals, um, are being met and growth is being seen there. So every year, the director of special education gives us, the teachers, a form where we write down our professional goals and growth, things that we want to see developed, um, areas that we can identify where we need to see growth and continued support as well. And then, that data is analyzed throughout the year, by the director to determine, um, are these goals and these gaps, are these goals being met and are these gaps closing as well? And that's done by the observations that are done throughout the school year. And I believe it is important for the director of special education to make frequent visits to the classrooms to best identify and see the data firsthand, of these goals for the teachers and students. Of course, as well, the reality is a lot of teachers don't like administrators coming in or out of their classrooms. It puts some, unneeded or unnecessary pressures on them. They might feel a little anxious or nervous. So it is up to me in that role to communicate with teachers that, if I am visiting their classrooms frequently, it is not to necessarily critique or analyze every part of their instruction or their learning environment. Um, but if I want to actually analyze data, if I want to look at goals and understand what a teacher's goals are, and to genuinely understand if they're making progress towards those goals, excuse me, that I need to have a wealth of observational data on my end as well. I can't make judgments on, growth of goals or goals being met if I'm only stopping in the classroom once a semester or once every 3 months or sometimes once a year. I have heard cases of that happening as well. In order for me to analyze data efficiently and effectively, I have to be involved with those processes. I have to be visiting the classrooms when and where I can, um, so that I best understand what's happening in the classroom. And again, are goals being met? Are the gaps shrinking? Um, you know, and are the steps for our school improvement actually being met or not? I have to be on the ground floor, to put it into a terminology, to really understand um, if school improvement is taking place. And if it's not, then, through my observations and my consistent observations, I would best understand how to, modify those steps or to take corrective actions to ensure that school improvement plans are being met as well. So I might view it as, educational leader. I have to be involved again with those processes, and I have to truly understand what's going on in the day-to-day operations, in my building to best service my teachers, paraprofessionals, social workers, students, and all other staff in the building as well. What excites or worries you about any of these roles? Touched on that a little bit in some of the discussions here, but again, just making sure that staff understand, where I'm coming from. And, right now, I know I've had two directors of special education in my time with Chance Light, and how often the directors have been, in the hallways of students or in the classrooms of teachers has varied dramatically. Um, I've gone long periods of time without seeing my instructor or my educational leader in the classroom. And it makes it difficult when an evaluation comes or they have inputs, how things can be better, um, when you don't see them around quite as often. So, well, what worries me there is making sure that staff understand again that if I'm around a lot, my presence is seen and felt in the classrooms, in the hallways, in the gym frequently, that I am not there to critique or over scrutinize or micromanage anything they're doing. I am just there to provide the support and to make sure that I understand what's happening in my own program so that when I have ideas or suggestions for improvement, that it is warranted and it is based in data and things that I have seen firsthand consistently as well. So no, that's also the part that excites me as well as being on that ground floor, being able to go and be more involved in all the classrooms in my program and being able to be involved in the hallway interactions and being involved in the behavioral supports for students a little more hands-on. Being able to be more involved with students when they're on free time or recess in the gym. Going to each classroom even during something like lunch, for example, and interacting with students and working with them there. Building that camaraderie and establishing relationships with every student in the program and with all the teachers and staff in the program as well, is someone that excites me about that potential there. So next we'll come to our discussion. We will look at describing various forms of professional development. We'll look at some of the content of professional development. We will contrast the roles of an instructional coach and a school administrator. So talk about some of the differences there. And then we'll justify the balance between school autonomy and instructional coherence. So starting off with the various forms of professional development, we do have an excuse me, an article here, Effective Teacher Professional Development from Linda Hammond, as well as a variety of others as well. And I will pull that up to share on my screen here. Well, we'll take a look at, excuse me, we will take a look at the let me exit out of that. Take a look at some of the content found within professional development, what professional development is, and how it's structured. So there we go. So here are some of the elements of effective professional development. So effective professional development is content focused. It incorporates active learning, utilizing adult learning theory. It supports collaboration, typically in job-embedded context. Collaboration is something that we have talked about a lot in our discussion so far, and the importance of collaboration between all teachers, all staff members in the building, and as well as the collaboration between teachers and administrators. Uses models and modeling of effective practice, provides coaching and expert support, offers opportunities for feedback and reflection. We'll touch on this in a little more detail in just a moment, but that feedback and reflection is a critical component of professional development and is also of sustained duration. So we're not going to read through all these different aspects here, but we will touch a little bit on them. So first one, their content focus. A professional development that focuses on teaching strategies associated with specific curriculum content supports teacher learning within their classroom context. As one example, the science teacher's learning from lesson analysis program seeks to strengthen teachers' understanding of how to teach science productively. I touched on this topic a little bit in my background knowledge, but working in a therapeutic day program or in an environment that is only special education students has been beneficial in regards to I can really focus on that content focus because we are just focused on special education students, how we service them, how I meet their accommodations, modifications, and needs found in their IEPs as well. A big content focus that we have had at Chancellor has been primarily on um, um, mathematical concepts as well as ELA and reading and grammar focuses as well. So that has been a big part of our content focus of professional development. Active learning. Active learning provides teachers with opportunities to get hands-on experience designing and practicing new teaching strategies. And professional development models featuring active learning, teachers often participate in the same style of learning they are designing for their students, using real examples of curriculum, student work, and instruction. This is something that we have actually worked on as well, primarily more so in the past couple years here. One focus that we have seen at Chancellite, and I know that I have seen in other schools, at least in my district area in Illinois here, is when that remote learning hit, we started to incorporate various forms of technology, um, through Google or Microsoft or online learning platforms to enhance student learning. So for teachers to understand how to engage students in these new forms of technology or these online learning platforms, it is very important that they are active learners of these platforms and technology themselves. So, excuse me, through various professional development days, we have gone through teachers going through the active learning process of continuing to use these technologies, understand these technologies, and engage with them in ways that the students are expected to as well. Collaboration. Highly quality professional developments create space for teachers to share ideas and collaborate in their learning, often in job-embedded contexts that relates new instructional strategies to teachers, students, and classrooms. By working collaboratively, teachers can create communities that positively change the culture and instruction of their entire grade level, department, school, and or district. Again, collaboration is something that I have had a strong emphasis on throughout our content areas here so far, and something that I will continue to emphasize the importance of as we go through the rest of this course, and also for my own um, professional growth, as I become an educational leader someday as well. But um, I think the key here that stood out to me is teachers can create communities that positively change. I'll try to highlight it there for you. Change the culture and instruction of their entire grade level department, school, and or district. Teachers are always on the ground floor and they are always having, arguably the biggest impact on student achievements in the classrooms. They're the ones with students for the entire school day. They're the ones who have students in the classroom. They're the ones engaging in lessons with students, providing supports and feedback to them. They're the ones who are collaborating, working with their social workers, psychologists, school administrators, paraprofessionals, and teacher aides, and also the parents of these students as well. So we need to really emphasize the importance of collaboration and, emphasizing and reiterating the importance of this when we go through our professional developments as well. The more insights we get, um, the more that we pull in, the more diverse thoughts and insights we get, and ideally, that leads to us, having a bigger and broader picture and having a better understanding of our students' needs, wants, and desires as well. Uses of models and modeling. Curricular models and modeling of instruction provide teachers with a clear vision of what best practices look like. Teachers may view models that include lesson plans, unit plans, and sample student work, observations of peer teachers, and video or written cases of accomplished teaching. Um, so with our professional development as well, we might use, again, just models. And I feel a lot of the time that modeling comes from either the educational leaders and admin teams modeling what a unit is going to look like, or modeling, as it mentions here, some examples of lesson plans or student work. A lot of time we'll also see forms of this as well in videos that are viewed by teachers either individually or in small groups. Coaching and expert supports. Coaching and expert support involve the sharing of expertise about content, about practice focused directly on teachers' individual needs. Experts may share their specialized knowledge as one-on-one coaches in the classroom, as facilitators of group workshops, or as remote mentors using technology to communicate with educators. Um, so with coaching and expert supports, um, the term experts, to be honest on my end, is not a term I like to use a lot. When I think about myself as an educational leader or as a mentor teacher to others, or when I'm coaching somebody. Um, when we are working with others and we are coaching them and we are providing support to them, especially in the form of professional development, from my end, I just want to share with them that um, I'm giving them some of my own background knowledge. I'm sharing some of the experiences that I have had as an educator, and I'm acting just as a mentor to them and communicating with them and creating open discussion. Coaching is supposed to build on, you know, things that people are doing well and maybe also not doing well and creating plans to see continued improvement or to see a course correction. But I think you don't want to try and assert yourself as an expert in any category, because even as an educational leader, I still need coaching and I still need supports so that I continue to be a exemplary model for my teachers and staff in a building. So professional development, as we also discussed last week, does not stop once you become an educational leader or an administrator. We still need those workshops. We still need those developmental days because we are continuing to learn and grow as well. Our next discussion here contrasts the roles of an instructional coach and a school administrator. And I found a couple paragraphs here that I'll just go through quickly that I believe best emphasize some of the differences between an instructional leader and an instructional coach. So instructional leadership. Educators across the United States are witnessing a continuous shift in expectations. Instructional leadership is increasingly considered the primary role of school principals. With the simultaneous implementation of TESS, the Texas Principal Evaluation and Support System, TEA has sent a clear message that instructional leadership is valued and the responsibility of Texas school leaders. The agency's expectations, as outlined in the teacher and principal evaluation systems, are aligned to the current literature. Research has shown that the principal is second only to the teacher in terms of impact on the student. And those that engage in instructional supervision have a positive impact on student achievement. However, some school administrators lack the knowledge and confidence in their skills to serve as instructional leaders. Campus principals' abilities to serve as instructional leaders is key to the success of teachers and ultimately students. For principals to effectively serve as the campus and instructional supervisors, not only do they have to possess the curricular and instructional knowledge and skills, they must also possess the skills to communicate effectively, build relationships, and earn their faculty's trust and respect. And I just wanted to highlight that middle part there. The principal is second only to the teacher in terms of impact on student. We will come back to that in just a moment here. But instructional coaching. Jim Knight defines an instructional coach as a person whose responsibility is to develop teachers professionally by helping them implement instructional practices while focusing on the individual's professional goals. Knight's theoretical foundation for instructional coaching includes 7 principles: equality, choice, voice, dialogue, reflection, praxis, and reciprocity. Reciprocity. He identified skills key to the success of an instructional coach, including communication skills, relationship building, and the ability to facilitate teachers' reflection about their instruction. Instructional coaches must build relationships with teachers to ensure the instructional discourse is based on high expectations and honest feedback. So I believe the biggest difference we see between an instructional leader and an instructional coach is the impact that a leader is going to have on students and all members in a school building as well. Now, that is not to diminish the importance and the impact an instructional coach has on others as well. Instructional coaches also play a big role and have a big impact on students and on all members in the building as well. However, an instructional coach is going to be or have a higher focus on the teacher themselves and how teachers continue to improve professionally and implement the curriculum in their classrooms. Whereas an instructional leader is going to have an impact on everybody in a building. Again, I think they sum it up very well in their last sentence here. 4 principles to effectively serve as the campus instructional supervisors. Not only do they have to possess the curricular and instructional knowledge and skills, they must possess the skills to communicate effectively, build relationships, and earn their faculty's trust and respect. So instructional leaders are also going to be working more hands-on with the social workers, the paraprofessionals, teacher aides, the teachers, the custodial staff in a building, the school psychologists. They're also going to be working with the other administrators in the school. They're going to be working more closely with the parents of the students. They're going to be dealing with things related to academic success, social success, emotional success, things relating to behavioral issues or discipline issues in the school. So the instructional leadership just, I think, encompasses a broader range of responsibilities for the educational administrator and leader, whereas the instructional coach is primarily just focused on more of the curriculum and instructional strategies used within the classroom. Justify the balance between school autonomy and instructional coherence. And again, our information from this last question came from Yanira Olivares Ortiz and her school administrators as instructional coaches, teachers' trust and perceptions of administrators' capacity. But to touch on coherence and autonomy, we'll just read this short little section here that I believe was of the most importance. So finally, I'm going to start here. Note that some of the advice on how to achieve coherence by adhering to the PD programs, professional development programs, methods for facilitating enactment may seem contradictory. This applies especially to either papers addressing teacher autonomy and stating that teachers should have the opportunity to choose professional development programs for themselves, or those emphasizing that the same professional development should be provided to all teachers in a district or school. Interestingly, however, these 2 recommendations mostly appeared in the same papers. For example, Porter, Garrett, Des Moines, Berman, and Yoon argued that teachers' discretion in choosing professional development on their own contributes to its coherence of their personal goals for professional development, but at the same time, there is a need to balance the benefits of teacher choice with the benefits of coherent district or school-wide program of professional development. When we are talking about professional development and teacher autonomy or coherence, we are focusing primarily on when we have professional development, how much of this do we want to be the teachers, choosing or working on professional developments that are of their own choosing and they believe is best suited to their own professional goals, and how much of these do we want to be coherent to a school-wide or district-wide, vision, mission, values, and goals as well. And it's important for us to, ultimately find that balance. How do we find balance that when we have professional development for our instructors, continues to contribute to the success of our entire school and district, but does also, play a role in a teacher's individual professional growth and development as well. Um, Finding those professional developments that hit both ends of that spectrum, is a difficult task for us as educational leaders, but ultimately as part of our job responsibilities and our job goals as well, to make sure that we are best servicing, again, the individual growth of our teachers, as well as the overall school and district growth of our teachers as well. Our last session here will come from our core text reflections. And with our core text reflections this week, there is a lot of information to cover. So I think what I'm going to do for this week is we will go over a highlighted section of each question and content area and then provide some background context for them as well. So the first question, what is most important to remember when planning curriculum? And we see planning curriculum in chapter 5 of our core text this week. And we have a lot of different aspects of curriculum planning. What is most important is a subjective question in nature. But I will go through each of the different areas and then touch on what I believe to be of importance for each of these areas as well. And I probably do not need to keep sharing my screen for that. So I'm looking at curriculum planning. When we are looking at curriculum planning, we have a lot of different aspects. As we've looked at creating units of instruction, creating curriculum through these past 4 weeks, we have seen that there are a lot of different areas and grounds to cover. So when we are curriculum planning, first and foremost, as we've talked about many times, we have to make sure that we are creating our goals and curriculum based on state and federal benchmarks and goals and standards as well. So, goal-based model of curriculum planning. Making sure that when we are creating our units of instruction, and planning our curriculum, that our curriculum is aligning with those state and primary standards. If our curriculum does not align with the standards, then, first of all, we can't use the curriculum in our schools and we can't use them in our units of instruction. And second, if they don't align with our standards, it becomes more difficult for us to have a clear sense of direction of, where our curriculum is heading and how it is going to service students throughout the units of instruction throughout the school year. So we want to make sure that we align our educational goals and our curriculum and our database, with those state standards. When we do that as well, we're also planning our curriculum calendar as well. We have talked about that in previous weeks, making sure that we do have a calendar that, again, is fluid in nature. We do not want our teachers to think that they have to match up one-on-one each day with the curriculum calendar, but it just provides kind of a roadmap of where teachers should expect to be and what they should be teaching at different parts of the year. Um, Organizing and evaluation of resources. When we are creating our curriculum, we need to be aware of what type of resources we are going to need throughout the school year. Are we going to be using, auditory forms of technology? Are we going to use online learning platforms? Are we going to be using assistive technology for special education students in these in this curriculum and units of instruction? But what type of resources do teachers need? Do they need access to particular platforms or websites or textbooks? Um, where are the worksheets coming from? Where are they finding materials for student projects? When we have assessments, where are those assessments coming from? So making sure that we, have our resources organized and making sure that we've evaluated those resources to make sure that they are aligning with our curriculum and with our units of instruction. Um, so like kind of wraps up our first question there. Our second one, we'll be looking at how do the authors suggest that we should improve the program of studies? So how do we improve our program studies here? And their main ideas come from, um, excuse me, we improve our program of studies is best summarized this way by our authors. Educational leaders periodically need to implement a systematic process to assess and improve each program studies. The process usually involves improving an existing program rather than investing in developing new programs to study. Value is gained from examining past attempts to reconceptualize programs of study. Curriculum leaders can improve existing programs of study by developing a balanced assessment program, aligning district goals in the curriculum, correlating curricula, analyzing resources allocated to curricula, assessing constituent satisfaction, utilizing accrediting agency standards, and valuing a global connection. Um, so instead of always just when, let me backtrack, but we need to improve our program of studies. We don't always need to just take everything back to the base or back to square one. As they mentioned, it's important to, reconceptualize or analyze our existing programs of study and analyze, are we using our resources effectively? Can we, shift our resources to better, um, teach the curriculum, meet the student needs? Um, is our curriculum still aligned with district goals, state goals, federal goals? Um, are our assessments still meeting those district goals as well? Um, what do our teachers and those in the district think about the curriculum? Um, but it's important for us to analyze our curriculum before we think that we need to necessarily just completely revamp it, throw out the window, and get something new on board. As we've seen in previous weeks and previous discussions, it is not easy to create new curriculum and instruction and create units of learning. It is a very, very long process. So before we do that, we want to make sure that we are thoroughly evaluating our own curriculum and making any necessary adjustments to our program of studies before we just throw them out the window. What about improving a field of study. So our last question kind of dealt with the overall, um, the overall aspect of our curriculum. And if we were looking at just a field of study, they summarize this best by saying, um, this is found in chapter 7 as well. This chapter described a process for reconceptualizing fields of study and emphasized that professional learning is becoming an increasingly integral and critical part of our schools. With the advent of new state standards and the Common Core state standards, along with the technological advancements and globally connected classrooms, schools are now making significant inroads into changing curriculum and enhancing individual student learning. Thus, finding creative ways to support current reforms is becoming a major part of reconceptualizing fields of study, not only nationally, but also worldwide. Um, so when we are working on, uh, excuse me, improving our fields of study, again, we need to work on thinking about these fields of study um, in ways that we may not have in the past. One thing that they mentioned here that I think is of big importance, they say along with technological advancements and globally connected classrooms, schools are now making significant inroads into changing curriculum and enhancing individual student learning. Technological advancements and globally connected classrooms are probably going to be something that's going to be, in our educational system, and continue to be even more important in our educational system, um, for years and years to come. Technology is not going to decrease or go away. Um, at least that's been the trend for the last 1,000 years. So there's no reason right now to think that it's going to be different. As we become more connected with different learners in our environments and different learners in our world as well, it's important for us to be aware of these technological advancements and changes, um, to not only our society and our students, but also how this impacts our classrooms and our learning environments as well. This also ideally then helps us to be more aware of different cultures and diversity, within our fields of study, so we are best servicing our students as well. And what is the process for developing new courses and units of study? Developing new courses and units of study. We have actually done this year at my therapeutic day program. So in our therapeutic day program, sometimes, in certain school districts, their criteria for what students need to graduate, as far as number of math credits, science credits, elective credits, can change over the course of time. So how do we then develop these new courses? Well, we did develop these new courses by first determining the course parameters. So determining what this course is going to teach. What is it going to emphasize? What are students going to, see and hear and learn in these new courses? We need to identify course objectives as well. Again, what should students know before they start this course? What are they going to learn throughout this course? And what should they know by the end of it? We're going to identify learning activities, select instructional materials, and identify assessment methods. So very similar to the process that we've talked about for developing units of instruction or units of study. When we are developing new courses, we need to make sure that we are identifying proper learning and learning and assessment methods that align with those state standards and those priority standards. Otherwise, they are not effective or they are not being used, properly for our students as well. And we also should make sure that these new courses, again, have connections horizontally and vertically to student learning as well. Building the knowledge base for students, their previous knowledge, continuing to build their current knowledge, and how they're going to use that knowledge for future courses as well. Um, so again, it's a little bit of a shorter video here this week. I apologize for that. Hopefully we did cover enough material here to get an idea of some of the things that we're looking at. But if, again, as always, if there are any questions, concerns about anything this week, please feel free to reach out to me and contact me with anything that is needed. Thank you.